Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. Andrew McKee. So, it's Monday, May the 6th, in 2024, and I hope all of you had a good May the 4th, because, you can't have a fair life without a little bit of nerdy Star Wars love coming in. If you're curious, I watched a bit of Star Wars stuff on Saturday myself, caught up on the new animated Tales of the Empire that came out that day. It's sort of a continuation of their animated Tales of the Jedi. So from that, and it was only, 6 episodes, very short ones, about less than 15 minutes, and it was good stuff. It was really good. If you're a Star Wars fan, highly recommend it. So, hey, Kurt and Kevin and Kathy and Tanya and Damaris and David and Sarit and Janine. Not seeing me on YouTube? What? Hold on. No, I should be there. No, I should be. Okay, good. Found it. Good. Just checking. Yeah, Janine on looking for it on YouTube. I was like, wait a minute. No. I did extra checking this time because after that time several weeks ago where there were some issues, I have been extra cautious with both Facebook and YouTube to try to make sure that everything is going well. And that's usually what happens, as you know. Usually you get complacent with things and everything's working, so you don't, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And then something happens and it forces you to be extra cautious about things. It's a good wake-up call. So there you go. There you go. Oh, there's a bit of lag on YouTube? That's interesting. Okay. All right, just a bit of delay. That's weird. I wonder why. I did notice a message that came up on YouTube that was talking about recommending a new lower latency setting that I hadn't seen before. And I was going to check that out afterwards. So it could end up being could end up being something else. I don't know. That was weird. That was really weird. Okay. Well, hey, and Alicia's on here. Excellent. Woohoo! Always a good thing. So yes, woo. It has been another interesting week. I've been trying to prep for my travels. I will be heading off in a little over a week to head to New Jersey for the New Jersey Ren Fair. I'll be there for, a month. That will be nuts. And then heading over to the North Dakota Fair for 2 weekends in Fargo. So yeah, I'll be trying to endure those Texas summers the best way I can by being outside of Texas. That's what I've learned. It's the little things sometimes that help. But yes, that is the plan, and it's always interesting to try to prep because you always have that list of things like I need to bring this, I need to bring that, I need to have this together, prep that, and you go through, but it's always evolving. It's never static. I mean, year after year, month after month, normally, that list changes because things change, needs change. You can never really rely on that too heavily. Now, something interesting did happen last week. I got another tip from Sherwood. I know. It was like a week after Sherwood, and I got a tip. One of the things I do is I have my little I have my PayPal and Venmo information, and I guess this is kind of shameless putting it up like here on the screen, but no, I mean that's kind of this is what I show at the shows, and it's I tend to put that next to my tip bucket, and people will scan it so that they can give me a Venmo or PayPal tip, and that's great. But internet can be a little spotty sometimes out when you have, some of those days there were 16,000 people out there, so the internet was a little sluggish. So they would just take a picture of it for later, and sure enough, over a week later, somebody tipped me, and I was kind of like, wow, that's I never really thought about that being such a thing, that far removed and that much delayed. So really appreciated it, but that was a bit of a surprise. You know, one of those little things you never think of. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, snow this morning in Colorado. Yeah, see, that's why I'm trying to get up north more. And I mean, I don't necessarily want snow because I am from Texas. That would snow scares me. I'm not used to it. But trying to, yeah, it's that balance. You don't want to go into a blizzard because I am not prepared. Just like some of you up north are not prepared for the heat down in Texas. But yeah, you try to work it the best way you can. Oh, and that's great. I look forward to seeing them in New Jersey. It's an interesting thing. All the fairs I do, it's always a bit different. What I'm going to be doing is for several shows in the day, I'm going to be playing with another group, the Rowdy Bardlings. And some of you may know some of them from other fairs, for instance, like the Louisiana Fair. TJ is one of the guys who's running it. And yeah, anyway, it's I'll be playing. It'll be like usually about 4 or 5 of us on stage playing, which is definitely a different dynamic that I'm not really. I mean, I'm not used to it, but it is different. So it's definitely more fun, and I won't say more. It's fun in a different way. You know, different can be fun, and that's one of the reasons I do Faire, because it's never the same thing twice, and this is a good example of that. So I get to jam with them for several shows in the day. They also have me running the sound system at that stage during the day too. So shouldn't be a problem working on that. Just usually it's the first day or two where I have to spend some time with each group, making sure that everybody's sound is fine and our sound is good. And then after that, it kind of works itself. I just do a quick check to make sure everybody's fine at the beginning of each show, and then I'm free. And then I'll be busking and doing some other things, and it sounds like I'll be playing music for the dancing as well. And the cast have already talked to me about that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, sound tech Andrew. I mean, Louisiana hired me to be in charge of sound there for the Louisiana Fair, which was a bit of a surprise, but I did it and I worked hard at it. I think that's at least a big part of it. I want to make sure everybody's in good shape. But yeah, from that experience, I learned a lot. I mean, I spent too much time on it, I will say, last year in Louisiana, just making sure everything was set up. If I do it at Louisiana this year, I'll be going a few days earlier and making sure everything's set up. I'm doing some sound checks before Faire starts and trying to really optimize it so I'm not wasting time during the day. I mean, it's not a waste of time, but I could optimize that and do more busking. I mean, the first weekend, because of that, I didn't do near as much busking as I normally do, and I felt bad about that. Everybody was happy with the sound, but it was still a process. After that, it was fine, but I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. No, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm a little not a snow wuss, as Halacia so eloquently put, but I am a little, since I mean, I'm not really sensitive to it. I'm just not used to it, I guess. So in that respect, yeah, I guess I am sensitive to it, but it's just I can deal with it. I'm not used to it. So where somebody from, well, like last year when I was up in Chicago, and I did opening day at Wrigley Field. That was an experience. In April, it was so cold. There were guys up there in the upper deck wearing T-shirts and drinking cold beers, and it was freaking freezing with a heavy wind blowing in. And I was all bundled up, just going the whole time. And yeah, but I stayed. I stuck with it. I didn't leave until Whitney, who I was with up there, just said, "Hey, let's head down and hang out downstairs for a while." But I was fine the whole time. I mean, I was cold, but I was okay. But I'm just definitely not used to it. Yeah, and you're right, Dan. That is exactly right. Last year at New Jersey, I mean, they had to move a couple of times because of location problems, and they ended up at one of the, um, was it county fairground kind of thing, and it was, they only had a few weeks to get it all together because of the problems, and they made it work. Oh my gosh, they did a phenomenal job in such a limited time. I mean, was it perfect? No, but considering the amount of time, I I think they exceeded everybody's wildest dreams. It was better than you really could hope for. So, to all of their credit, they did a great job. So yeah, I think you're totally right. This year it's going to be much better. Fairs, it can be really tough. I mean, you're already like climbing up a steep hill to try to make everything work, and when really craziness happens that just tends to derail everything. I mean, when all that happened, a lot of people were thinking they were just going to not open that year, but they made it work, and that was it's impressive. I mean, it's all about the love of doing it, and that makes a huge difference. Well, I mean, the funny thing is, my fair garb and everything. I mean, some of my fair garb, that's the warmest. Those are the warmest clothes I own because I don't need anything that warm down in Texas. I don't have to deal with, uh, a teen or 20 or 30-degree weather. Uh, and fair garb just lends itself so well to being more thicker and more cloth, so and a lot of layers. So it works great for cold weather. But that's most of my cold weather gear, honestly. Some of my fair garb, so that works out great. But then it's like, what do I do outside of that? Well, I've got all these T-shirts. Oh no, I mean it's I don't own many long sleeve shirts. I don't need them. So it's really weird. I probably should invest in more the more I travel now because I am heading north more. But yeah, going up to New Jersey, I'm going to enjoy those 50-degree nights. I'll say that because it gets nice up there. Right. And that's it. That's what I'm going to be enjoying in New Jersey. Um, it's going to be May and June, and you're going to have those in the evenings. It's going to be nice and cool, and I'm going to enjoy it. Right, right. And that's the difference. I grew up in Texas, so I am not used to that. It is interesting how people, I mean, where you grow up, there's there's multiple components. There's the genetic component, where whatever genetically uh, your ancestry was from, you're going to be more inclined towards certain temperatures and regions. But that's only, I think, a little bit. But I mean, it's more like what you get used to growing up. I mean, you can get used to anything. You can be in a location and your body will develop, more of a resistance, to get that fatty tissue built up, and next thing you know, you've got a layer of insulation built in. But then, it's also what you're used to as far as habits, what clothes you buy, what your preferences are. You grow up with a certain attitude of this is the kind of clothing I wear, and you don't really think about colder weather clothes. I don't. It's very counterintuitive to me. So yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, I've heard people say that, Damaris, that some people like the cold, some people don't, and no matter where they're from. I mean, certainly there's an attitude about it. My father always loved the cold, yet he was born in the South, in Alabama, and that's where he got used to. He grew up and got used to hot weather, but he never liked it. He always preferred the cold. It's kind of interesting. Um, so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of elements to it, attitude and everything. Bard popsicle. Wow, that's I don't know. There's a marketing strategy in there somewhere. I just haven't quite figured it out. But I like the idea. I'm gonna think about that. Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, it's already 7:16. We're yesterday's happening all over again, and we're talking about the weather. So I really need to. Sorry, I need to get off that. Um, I totally understand, Jan. Totally understand. Whew. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Anyway, yeah, woo. Let me see. Let me go ahead and I did want to go ahead and bring up a couple of interesting tidbits that kind of crossed my desk, kind of thing, over the last week, and one of them was the British Library, and what they're doing is they're releasing a bunch of, well, medieval documents online so that people can study them and look at them and everything. And that is kind of fascinating if you do like history, which I assume some of you do. So, yeah, let me see. Let me jump on one of these. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Here's an example right here that they just released. And this is a grant of land from Osbert of Arden to Thurchill Fundu. I cannot make these names up. And it's somewhere around 1130, around there, from that time frame. So not even much less than 100 years after the Battle of Hastings, after the Norman conquest. So yeah, it's still when there was still a lot going on in England at that time, a response to the Norman conquests, and you had the Normans and the Saxons, and it took about 100 years for that integration to really happen. But this is sort of in the tail end of that time period. So it had kind of happened, and I think this document kind of tells a little bit about that, because it's a grant of land from Osbert of Arden, a Norman name, to Thurchill Fundu, a Saxon name. So that was going on, and the land was in Ashbrook and a meadow in Kingsbury, both in Warwickshire, for those that care. But that grant of land had requirements. And essentially, Thurkill was to become Osbert's squire. Now, it didn't say squire in there, not at all. In fact, it just gives, these are the services you have to render to me, which happen to be the same services that a squire would provide a knight. So, by implication, yeah, a squire. Services such as, carrying Osbert's dyed lances from London or Northampton to Osbert's house in Kingsbury, while using Osbert's horses and at Osbert's expense. Thurkill would also attend upon him at tournaments overseas, all on Osbert's expense. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing that a squire would do. Now, I don't know. I just love the look of this. Oh yeah, you're asking about it's actually a cotton material. So I kind of found that interesting. But yeah, isn't it an interesting look? I just love the look of it, because how it's kind of sealed and rolled over like that. I mean, I found that kind of interesting. Official documents in medieval times they do have a lot of them. They have a decent number of them from that time period. But interestingly, this is one of the first examples of talking about tournaments, jousting tournaments. They didn't have many documents that reference those until later, anyway, and this is one of the early ones. Jousting tournaments, well, let's see, some of you, the popular view is that it was something that kings or nobles put on, but back then, it wasn't usually like that. In fact, kings tended to not like jousting tournaments. The church railed against them. The Pope hated them because he was all about your. We want the knights to go out and go to crusade. We don't want you losing limbs or getting hurt in tournaments. You should be getting hurt doing God's service. So yeah, they weren't really crazy about it at that time. They warmed up to it later, but at this time it was more just like clubs that knights went off to prove how good they were to each other and learn new things, see new approaches, new techniques. It was interesting. So anyway, just thought that would be something to check out. It's the British Library, so if you want to look that up, check it out. They have a lot of documents like this that they are releasing, and they're in the process of releasing more. So if you have any interest in that, check it out. I just found it interesting, mainly for the look. I mean, if you ever just want to know what medieval documents looked like, this is pretty good, especially if you're trying to recreate one for a Ren Fair. This is a really great example of what the writing and the paper and the format would look like. So yeah, something to check out. Right, yeah, and you're totally right. Paper does not last that well. That's why probably part of the reason why in the wet environment of England, they use that. Let's be honest. And exactly, I love the handwriting. I just think that's really good. I know, a nightclub. I know. It was a horrible pun, but yeah. It does sound like an SNL skit, doesn't it? Like something Saturday Night Live would have on, and it'd say, "Ooh, a nightclub," and everybody dressed in armor. I just, yeah, they haven't done really well lately with some of their sketches. So I really think that sounds like something bad they would come up with lately. Oh right, yeah, very very interesting, very interesting. But yeah, I'll try to get some. They're going to be putting this together. I'll get some good links for you and put those up so you can check those out if you're interested. But just as something to check out, I found it really fascinating. Always the court jester when you're thinking about that. Yes, some Danny Kaye jokes. Always good. Always good. Oh, right. Yeah, that is a really good segment title. In fact, I'm just going to type that right here and write that down because I think you're right. That would be a good segment, the nightclub. I like it. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, just something to check out. I also want to just in passing mention something. This is a little bit left of center for sure, but just something crossed around my radar. A coder, a computer programmer, did some interesting things with the recorder recently. And it was one of those things where he thought, wouldn't it be interesting to use sound to move a mouse? And that shouldn't be too hard. Let me see if I can bring something like that up. Here you go. Might be a little loud musically, but here, let's lower the volume a bit. But yeah, you can kind of see where he's playing the recorder on here and doing checking out the different pitches as they come in and being able to record them in real time. And then what happened was he set up an actual extension for the browser, and you can see it's shaped like a recorder. It has a little icon in there that's replaced with a recorder icon, and the playing of the music actually moves it. And he can even make selections by playing a particular note. See, they're just I have to say, I mean, totally ridiculous, and I don't think it's useful for anybody, except maybe in a certain circumstance. I know, but it's just one of those little random silly quirks that I just thought was hilarious that I wanted to throw in just because I'm not gonna spend much time on it, but just I thought you might get a kick because it's just different. That yeah, based on you just have a range of these are the frequencies. If you hear this, you move the cursor that way. If you hear this, you move it that way. If you hear this range, it's a very high-pitched note is a selection. And that's how we approach it. It's really simple when you think about it. And I'm sure you could really get complicated where you could move it diagonally with certain frequencies and really make it something that you can really do some stuff with. But right now it was just like left, right, up, down, and doing that. But yeah, Yeah, now record pitches, I mean, certainly there's software that already does that. That wasn't a big deal. Certainly doable. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying a recorder, um, instead of the laser pointer, do the I like the way you think, Kurt. That is a good idea. That is a good idea. You're tempting me. You are tempting me. Having a cursor like okay. Well, I'll look into that. That's not bad. That is not bad. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the cats have had it too good. I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay. My recorder pointer. I like it. That sounded worse than I thought it would. Oh well. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump off this and go over to the Faire map because it's already almost 7:30 and we have a lot, and I mean a lot of fairs. I think there's 17, and I scaled back. I eliminated a few from the list because they were, kind of themed events put on by libraries or things like that I just didn't seem like a real Ren fair to me. So yeah, I know it did. So we're moving away from it. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Yay, here's the laser pointer. Yay, team. Let me make this a little bigger. There we go. Okay. So, starting off, we have the New Hampshire Renaissance Fair in Fremont, New Hampshire. This is its first weekend out of 2. So 2 weekends coming up. Then we go down to the Hudson Valley Pirate Festival in New Paltz, New York. Just 1 day only on May the 11th, on Saturday. Because I've said this before, New York has a ridiculous number of pirate festivals in an area not surrounded by water. I have no idea why. They just love pirate festivals in New York. Just an observation. Jumping down to Maryland, we have the Furnace Fairies and Gnomes celebration in Snow Hill, Maryland. Again, 1 day, only Saturday. And then going over to Virginia, we have the Virginia Renaissance Fair. And this is their first weekend out of 5 in Spotsylvania, Virginia. So several more weekends coming up. Then, well, let's just jump over to the Southern Indiana Renaissance Fair in Charlestown, Indiana. And this is their 3rd out of 5 weekends. So they've been going on a little bit and they'll continue. Halfway point, their theme is the Cirque de Faire. So I'm assuming that's circus-like, I guess. We'll go with that, I suppose. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. Okay, then we go down to the Tennessee Renaissance Festival. That's in Arrington, Tennessee, and this is their 2nd out of 4 weekends, and the theme is fantasy and folklore. Then jumping down to Georgia, we have the Georgia Renaissance Festival in Fairburn, Georgia. This is the 5th out of 8 weekends, and their theme is Viking and Barbarian. Oh, and I almost forgot Michigan up here. The Royal Stag Renaissance Fair in Marshall, Michigan. Only this 1 weekend. Then jumping over to Iowa, we have the Travelers Renaissance Village in Greenfield, Iowa. Just 1 weekend. And this is one of those fairs that's like a pop-up fair that is starting to become popular. The North Dakota fair is like that, and a few others, several others. These groups, what they do is they're not from the area, and they just set up a fair in places that just don't have them, where there's demand. And you don't get the big cities normally. It's more of the medium-sized cities and that type of thing, usually held at fairgrounds, not permanent structures. So it's kind of interesting. This is another example of that one, of that type, and they are popular. It's kind of fascinating. It's a fascinating strategy, and so far it seems to be working. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it continues on. Then you go to the Oklahoma Renaissance Festival in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And this is its 3rd out of 6 weekends, and the theme is pirates. And then jumping down to Scarborough, the Scarborough Renaissance Festival, in Waxahachie, Texas. And that is the 6th out of 8 weekends, and it is celebrating chivalry. Then we go over to, let's jump over to Utah Renaissance Festival and Fantasy Fair. And Marriott Slaterville is the name of the town in Utah. And it is 3 weekends. This is the first out of 3, and the theme is fairies. And then, speaking of fairies, jumping over to Idaho, the Beltane Fantasy Festival in Garden City, Idaho. Just 1 weekend only. That's a fairy festival. Then, going up to Washington, we have the Newport Ren Fair in Newport, Washington. 1 day only on the 11th, and 1 weekend only. We have the Two Rivers Medieval Fair in Kashmir, Washington, and that's 1 weekend. Let's see. Then we have 2 more. Yeah, 2 more going down to California. We have the Edge of Spring Fantasy Fair in Auburn, California, just 1 weekend. And then, of course, we have the 6th out of 7, the penultimate weekend of the Renaissance Pleasure Fair in Irwindale, California. Woohoo! Okay. And of course, remember that if you're going to be at Scarborough, make sure you go see Alicia, because she'll be over there. So definitely a bonus for going to Scarborough Fair. Yes, and there it is. It's Hollyfield Scapa Leather. Okay, definitely go check out that and say hello to her. Woo! Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, boats. Yeah, they love boats in New York. You're not wrong. I mean, the canals and everything. I get it. But it's just it doesn't really. It's an interesting choice. I'll say that. And I've been very cautious about. I've been very cautious about including some of the pirate festivals where it just seems like they're excuses for people who own boats to have a little boat festival, and everybody gets to dress up like their Captain Morgan and about ready to have a drink. I mean, that's really what it seems like. It's not. It doesn't. It's more like an excuse as opposed to an actual event. Themed party is how I'd phrase it. But so far, the ones in New York, they seem to be taking it really seriously. So unless I find out otherwise, I'll keep talking about them. So, but it is fascinating, the regional differences in interests and types of fairs. Whether they're this area likes medieval fairs more, or this area just has a ton of fairs in one small area. California's like that; they just have a ridiculous number of fairs. Or this place has a lot of fairs all in the same part of the year. All near each other, and that would be Florida, of course. They just have a lot of fairs like that. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see all of those differences, and I've been able to kind of witness some of that by doing these maps every week for you, and it's been fun and interesting. If they share rum, that's true. See, and that's cool. I think that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, entertaining for a good cause is very good, but I wouldn't call it a Ren Fair, and that's where do you draw that line? So that's kind of the idea there. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, yeah, I still have a good bit more to do, but don't worry, I'm not leaving until after my show next week, so we are good. And in New Jersey, at the very least, I should have good internet access. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. We should still get some, live streams on Mondays, no problem. And yeah, I may even have the windows open for those live streams. Yay! So should be a lot of fun, because if you're going to be traveling and doing fairs a lot throughout the year, you should have fun doing it, and that's always the goal. So remember, have a good week, a good month, but as always, a fair life. So take care, and I'll see you next week.